Let's just start with the camera control button. After all, it's the new thing. I'll put it this way. There is an option to set it to do nothing, and it's the most useful thing about this button. At least the camera system itself is amazing, which we'll get to in a second. But the camera control button is too high to be used in landscape, and it's too low to be used in portrait. So if you're gonna be using it in landscape, you'll be blocking a big part of a display, and if you're gonna be using it in portrait, you're gonna get carpal tunnel syndrome. Each year, Apple tries to add a killer feature to the iPhone to justify the upgrade, but for the first time, this is not only barely a feature, but rather an inconvenience that I'd gladly get rid of. I have yet to find any use case for this button except launching the camera app from anywhere in the system, and even then, most of the times I press it by accident. Now that we've got that out of the way, let's actually move to the cool stuff. So what's also new is the 48 megapixel sensor on the new ultra-wide lens. I'll be honest, I was never a wide lens type of guy. I always loved tighter lenses because in my opinion they can tell a story better, but from what I can tell, the lens has become noticeably sharper, especially in daylight. Like you can see in this picture if we zoom in. However, this megapixel increase has made it much worse in low light, because the individual pixels have become smaller in order to fit on the same sensor, as the sensor has stayed the same and not increased in size, so it's kind of a game of give and take. However, you can still shoot in lower resolution when the light gets dim, which will bend the 48 megapixels into much bigger 12 megapixels, which then will be able to capture more light. You will lose sharpness and resolution, but at least you will get a much better picture in terms of color, noise and focus. And in case you were wondering, now you can shoot 24 megapixels with the ultra-wide lens as you can with the wide. And you also can shoot at 120 fps with the ultra-wide lens, because the shutter speed of a new lens is too slow, so that only works with the wide. So when it comes to the wide lens, it has mostly remained the same, except this one feature that the sensor is now much faster, allowing you to shoot up to 120 frames per second. I mean, it was already as good as it gets, so no complaints here. I also noticed that if you shoot in the standard camera mode, it's now very easy to trigger portrait mode just by tapping to focus into something. On the 15, you would often ignore the tap and not go into portrait mode. And the cool thing is, this also works with the new telephoto and not just the wide lens. The introduction of a new photographic styles is actually more important than it might seem, because it now works with portrait mode, which brings the iPhone camera much closer to a real camera. It also benefits the regular everyday users and the pros. For example, if you're a casual photographer and you aren't bothered to edit, you can just use a photographic style that you like, set it as standard and forget about it. From now on, your photos will have a certain color graded look, which will make them stand out. Also, you can adjust the tone, which will decrease the artificial HDR effect that the iPhone loves so much, so your photos won't look as washed out anymore. Instead, it will have a look that resembles the real camera because it will keep the shadows dark. Like for example in this photo, notice how the camera kept the shadows dark and the iPhone tried to lift them, which made the picture less pleasing. However, if you dial the tone down, you can get a similar looking picture out of the iPhone. By the way, comment down below if you want me to make a video about the iPhone's camera settings. As for the pros who like to edit their pictures themselves, while portrait mode still doesn't shoot in RAW, it seems that with the addition of photographic styles, Apple has added much more data to the portrait file. Previously, if you tried to edit them in Lightroom, they'd start to fall apart pretty quickly. Now, however, you can edit them almost as if these were RAW files. I'm guessing it's because they no longer act like filters, but rather like a preset. Now we just wait until Apple adds the 3x button in software. Probably not gonna happen until the next iPhone though. By the way, about the 3x lens. At first, I thought I would miss it because of how used I was to this lens, and for the first few days, I actually missed it. But after readjusting my composition for the 5x lens, I quickly noticed how much better it was to have a 5x lens instead of 3x. Yes, sometimes you might have to take a few steps back to fit the object into the frame, and because of that, the lens also needs more time to focus, but it has a much nicer background compression. Here, you can see how the 5x lens pulled the background much closer to the car, which makes the photo look more immersive, and the car stands out more because of that. Where the 5x lens truly stands out though, is the reach. So to test that, I went to the zoo. And here's the photos that I took on the iPhone 16 Pro. I'm quite impressed. Also, notice how it picked even the small hairs. On previous models, portrait mode wasn't half as good. It's still not perfect, but as long as it detects a human or an animal, it will have great background awareness and hair separation. As always, I also brought my Sony camera with me, and this is the part where I'm supposed to compare the Sony camera to the iPhone, but I didn't even take the camera out of my backpack because the iPhone was so so good. It also weighs a lot less, I always have it with me, and I can even edit and post the pictures on the same device without having to carry an SD card, an iPad, a dongle, and MacBook, or whatever to edit the pictures. The iPhone made the whole process so much easier. Obviously, the quality of these photos would have been much better if they were taken on a real camera. At the end of the day, you can't beat physics. A bigger sensor is a bigger sensor, as stupid as it sounds, but first of all, I don't have a lens that can reach up to 120mm, which the telephoto of the iPhone can. Also, a lens like that would cost around $500, which is half the price of this phone. And second of all, a telephoto lens is really heavy, so running around with a 120mm lens would not be fun whatsoever. So if the ultimate goal isn't to take the best quality picture, I'd even go as far as to say that the iPhone 16 Pro is sometimes better than a real camera. And if you really need that 3x lens because you can't always take a few steps back, you can just zoom in 3 times and the iPhone will take a decent picture as long as the light isn't less than ideal. The same goes for cinematic mode, because now you can even zoom in while shooting.
Let's talk about video. The audio that you're listening to right now is coming straight from the iPhone. There's no external mics, there's no post-processing, no filters, just the iPhone. Notice how it compares to a studio-grade mic that I was using for the rest of the video. Honestly, this thing is impressive, and not just for an iPhone, it easily compares to a professional mic. And the video that you're watching is also coming from the iPhone. It's recorded in 4K 30 ProRes log. The only downside though is that Apple doesn't let you record log in anything but ProRes, so the file sizes are massive. Just for your information, I've got over 100 GB free on my iPhone right now, and I can only record a ProRes log for 15 minutes. You could of course download a third-party app like Blackmagic, let's say, which lets you record an H.265 log, which would bring the file size down massively, bringing it from 15 minutes to 5 hours of recording. However, you would lose the audio mix feature because it's only available in the standard camera mode, so the audio wouldn't be as good. One day, Apple will figure out a way to combine all the camera modes together, but that day is sadly not today. Until then, you will have to choose whether you want log, cinematic video, small file sizes, or good audio.
Now, let's talk about JPEG XL, which is a new format that Apple has added to the iPhone 16 Pro. In simple terms, JPEG XL lets you save high-res photos in much smaller file sizes, so you get sharper photos without clogging up your iPhone storage. There are 2 options: low-C for everyday photos and lossless for those times when you want the highest quality picture, like if you plan to print it, for example. A standard 48MP Pro RAW photo may take up to 75 MB, but with JPEG XL it's reduced to about 20 MB with barely any noticeable quality loss. This is really useful for managing large photo libraries and to keep your iPhone's storage in check. However, just be aware that JPEG XL is a relatively new format, so it isn't fully supported yet across all the platforms. So if you use your device outside the Apple ecosystem, you might run into mild compatibility issues. Again, if you want me to do a deep dive into the iPhone's camera settings and new formats, let me know down in the comments. So there you have it. The iPhone 16 Pro camera is undoubtedly one of the best we've seen on a smartphone. It packs a lot of features and potential, but like with everything, it's not without its compromises. Whether it's the 5x lens replacing the 3x, the new JPEG XL format, or the impressive video and audio capabilities, this is a camera that can easily stand in for your real camera. Is it a replacement for a professional camera? Not quite, but for most people, this is as close as it gets. If you find this video helpful or you're still undecided about the iPhone 16 Pro, make sure to check my upcoming full review of the iPhone 16 Pro. And of course, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe so you don't miss my future videos. As always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.